after this chapter, there is just no doubt anymore. Reg is a fucking beast. Hello everybody, I am Phenom Sage, and welcome back to another Made in Abyss chapter reaction / review. This video is the review. If you want to watch the reaction, it will be in the description below. Today we're going to be talking about Chapter 31, Despair and Hope. And what a fitting title indeed. I said this at the end of my reaction without even remembering what the chapter title was. I said that the beginning of this chapter felt really hopeless, scary, and just really fucked up in general. But by the end of this chapter, things are looking up for our group. And we'll get into that, but it was very aptly named Despair and Hope because we got all kinds of emotions in this chapter. Now, one thing to note before I get into this review, I am actually sick at the moment. It might not show as much in this review because I'm cutting it together and you won't hear like all the sniffling and all that, but I'm really congested, so if I sound off or sound weird, that's why. Sorry about that. And especially sorry for the reaction during that because unlike this review, I didn't cut together the reaction, so you had to sit through all that, but hopefully you guys don't mind. It was either that or I just waited until I wasn't sick to record, and I figured most people would want this even if I was sniffling part of the time. With that in mind, let's get into this chapter, and what a chapter indeed. This might be more of a shorter chapter review just because a lot of what happened in this chapter was more so action focused than dialogue focused, and it's not like we learned a lot, it's just more so that a lot of things are in play right now. We see a lot more of what's going on to Reg than what we saw last chapter, and it is horrific. What are they doing to him? The praying hands are clearly researching and trying to learn the secrets about Reg and what he's made out of. Which, in all fairness, I don't think we as viewers know what Reg is made out of either. So I don't blame them for wanting to discover this, but this is just terrible. Luckily, the rest of our group shows up just in time before they go even further, start cutting off legs, start cutting open his stomach. They show up before that happens. They get Reg out of there. But at the same time, as they're escaping, the praying hands just focus on Prushka and say, Prushka, you know you're not allowed up here. And go on to say, now come over here, and they point to the chair that Reg was just tied to. And why? Why would they do this to Prushka? That is Bondrewd's daughter. Why would they put her in that position? That is a spiked chair, and you're going to put your master's daughter on that? I don't think so. So I genuinely don't know what they're thinking. I don't know if Prushka really is disposable to Bondrewd, which knowing him, she probably is, but just this seems so weird that the praying hands wouldn't even hesitate to put her on that chair. It's also interesting to note that when Rico and Prushka showed up to save Reg, Rico was the only one who looked out of it. And this is clearly because of the fifth layer's curse. They somehow made it up the stairs okay. But what's interesting is that Prushka doesn't even seem phased. It's only Rico that does. Maybe Prushka is just better at handling it than Rico is? I don't know. But what's really interesting to me in this entire confrontation is that when Nanachi shows up before Rico and Prushka, she shows up, she's clearly horrified at what they're doing to Reg, and when the praying hands spot her, they only say, blessed. The blessed. Now, I've seen this word thrown around quite a lot since the finale, and while I have a slight hint at what it's referring to, I actually don't know the full picture behind this word and how it pertains to Nanachi. So I am really looking forward to seeing more about what this blessed thing means. Do not spoil it in the comments, please. It will be explained in due time. And I just overall enjoyed Nanachi's presence in this confrontation just because it showed how vulnerable she is. You can see it on her face whenever the praying hands go after her. It's almost like she's experienced this before. But as the praying hands are about to put Prushka on this chair, I was so scared because I genuinely thought that they would take her and I did not want that. But as that's about to happen, Reg goes full beast mode, stretches the only hand he has left, gets Rico and Prushka out of there as Nanachi closes the door and traps the praying hands inside. That is what I'm talking about. Nanachi makes a note that the praying hands really didn't try to escape, which tells me that they really didn't care about being trapped in because, as we see later, they were just found again in the future, so it doesn't matter, but still, that entire sequence was awesome. Reg, I love you. Having escaped, Prushka takes them to a boat tells them to leave, but Nanachi makes sure to note that they are coming back for Reg's other hand, which at this point seems kind of foolish since they would be better off just trying to leave, although they don't really have anywhere else to go to, so then again that plan is busted as well. Who knows what they're going to do on the 5th layer. But honestly, what I didn't expect is for the group to be leaving Edo Front. I did not expect this to happen until we were on our way to the 6th layer, but here we are, taking a boat out of Edo Front onto the 5th layer to escape from Bondrewd. The sad part is, and I expected this, but I didn't want it to be so, Prushka does not come with us when we escape. It makes sense why she doesn't leave. I mean, this has been her home this whole time. She loves her father, and this has been one incident where she's like, wait, what? What did he do? So I completely understand her not just immediately saying, you know what? I'm leaving. I don't like this place anymore. Bondrewd lied. Like, it makes sense that she stayed behind, but I don't want her to. Come with us. It's time for this 4-team greatness. And the worst part is when Riko, Reg, and Nanachi are leaving on the boat away from Edo Front, Riko is just saying goodbye, and Prushka has this wonderful farewell line. You can tell in her last dialogue to Riko, she says, you know, it might be improper of me to say this, but if Reg is properly fixed, if everything is settled, then, and then she just stops saying anything, and you can tell exactly what she was going to say. She wants to continue being friends with them, and even in her final line, she says, Riko, I also want to go on an adventure together. And they just do such a good job of making you care about Prushka as a character. She's one of my favorite characters we've seen in this series, and it hurts saying goodbye to her. But to make things even worse, as they're leaving, and as Prushka is saying her goodbye, the praying hands show up, and God, they're scary. You just have these wonderful panels of Riko looking back, horrified at what's going on, and just this very zoomed out shot of the praying hands surrounding Prushka, and what are they doing to her? You leave her alone. I really don't think they would just straight up kill Prushka. Like, why? What is the purpose? She didn't even do anything. She's been living with Bondrewd for this long. I seriously doubt that the praying hands or Bondrewd would just kill her just for no reason. As Reg, Riko, and Nanachi are huddled out in the 5th layer, somewhere in the snow, I imagine. There's a bit of dialogue here, but eventually Nanachi is holding on to Reg and just letting him rest as she protects him. By the way, the ship is real. And as Nanachi is letting Reg rest, Bondrewd just shows up out of nowhere. And at first I thought this was a vision just because it just happened so suddenly. But no, that is the real Bondrewd. Bondrewd came out all the way here to get Reg. And it's important to note that when Nanachi escaped with Mitty, Bondrewd made no effort to go after her, but when Reg is taken, he immediately goes after him, and I think that makes a lot of sense just based on what Reg is. It is invaluable to Bondrewd. But just as I thought they were going to be dragged right back to Edo Front, Riko comes through with her plan, uses the everlasting pick to destroy some snow, but as we find out in just a second, it wasn't the snow and the avalanche that she meant to create. It was a disturbance to wake up the creatures underneath the sandstone. And this entire sequence is fantastic. Such a great ending to a chapter. It's one of my favorite endings that I've read so far, in the manga so far. And what's best about this, in my opinion, is that we finally see Bondrewd in more of a vulnerable state. My favorite panel is when Bondrewd sees the avalanche and he says, "This is dangerous, Nanachi. Let's evacuate immediately." And Nanachi and Reg are already gone. Reg has used his hand to escape. And you just see Bondrewd, and this is the first time we've ever seen Bondrewd in a position where things are not going his way, and I like that. I like that for once, our group has outsmarted Bondrewd. And on second thought, while looking at these panels, I'm not even sure if it was an avalanche that Riko created, because Nanachi says, "You've been looking at nothing but that hole," and what does she mean by that? Did Riko create a hole in the snow up there? Or is there something going on here that I'm missing? Because I'm not quite sure what Riko actually did other than awaken the beasts underneath the ground. So if somebody wants to tell me what Nanachi is talking about with the hole and all that, I'm terrible at interpreting action in manga form sometimes. So I'd be pleased to hear what Riko actually did. From my perspective, it looked like she just used the everlasting pick, destroyed some snow, and that created like a mini avalanche almost. Not like a huge avalanche, but just like snow piling down. So if that's not what happened, let me know. I'd be glad to get that correction and clarification. But before I move on, I have to just reiterate, Rico used the Everlasting Pick. And during that episode 9 review, a lot of you told me that the Everlasting Pickaxe was never used in the manga again, so it was cool to see it being done in the anime. Well, you lied to me. I will never forgive that. In all seriousness though, it's actually pretty interesting that not a lot of people remembered that Rico used the Everlasting Pickaxe in this chapter. A lot of people straight up told me that it is never used again. So I am actually pleasantly surprised that we got to see this Everlasting Pickaxe in action yet again, in some actual canon material. And a very badass sequence, I might add. Anyways, I love that Rico used her smarts here and is actually responsible for something awesome. It feels like it's been quite a while since Rico has used her smarts and her brain and come up with a plan that's really helped out the team. Like ever since the beginning, before we even met Nanachi, it feels like. So I really enjoyed that. And I love that this creature, the Kasho Gashira, which in the anime is actually referred to as a stingerhead, was mentioned all the way at the beginning with those notes that Liza had sent up to the surface. So that's really cool. I love that all of that was foreshadowed ahead of time. I love when series do that. And at the end of the chapter, we just get this glorious 2 pages of Bondrewd and his praying hands surrounded by the stinger heads, and seeing the praying hands just get wiped out. They are just covered in these scorpions' tails. Obviously, Bondrewd is going to make it out of this alive. I just wonder how he's going to do it. Is he going to use all of the praying hands as bait and then escape? Or is he strong enough to actually take on these stinger heads? And what I'm also wondering is, are these all of the praying hands, or are there more inside of Edofront? I would imagine there's a few more in Edofront, and this is just a squad that he took with them. But yeah, just overall a great chapter, great ending sequence. I love this ending so much. And just an overall note I want to make about the chapter, the facial expressions. Akihito, you god! They're so damn good! Whether it be when Rico was holding in her tears looking at Reg in such a painful sight, and then eventually just letting it all out and just seeing all of the emotion on Rico's face. Or when Nanachi was terrified by the praying hands. Or Pushka's just subtle facial expressions changing from fear to happiness to fear. It's just all so good. The facial expressions have always been good in Made in Abyss, but it was this chapter in particular where they just really stood out to me. I'm really looking forward to next chapter. One last thing, if you're a fan of video games, and more specifically the Game Awards, the nominees were actually listed and put up just yesterday. So me and my friend Famincho just made a video reacting to the nominations and then going through and voting for our picks. So if you enjoy video games, that might be worth a watch if you want to watch it. I will link it on the screen now, or I might put it in the description. Again, thank you all so much for watching and for the support, and just the encouragement to keep making videos. I enjoy putting these out every single week for you guys, and as always, have a great day.